Have you ever imagined walking along the beach, feeling the sea breeze and suddenly coming across something so striking it makes your heart race? That's exactly what happened to me when I found an orca, yes, an orca, stranded on the sand, fighting for its life, and its only hope was us. Everything began with the dawn covering the sky in soft colors, golden, orange, and pink tones blended together, reflecting on the calm sea of the early morning. The white sand, still damp from the overnight dew, remained almost untouched, showing only a few seagull footprints in search of food. It was the perfect setting for a refreshing morning walk. Jack Thompson, an experienced middle-aged fisherman, walked this stretch of beach every day. A lover of tides, currents, and winds, Jack always followed nature's rhythm. He knew every inch of that coastline like the back of his hand. His walks served not only to keep him in shape, but also to look for signs of potential schools of fish that might come closer to shore. Knowledge that made all the difference in his fishing success. As usual, he wore a worn-out cap with a fishing hook emblem, a simple t-shirt and flip-flops. The gentle breeze caressed his face as he gazed at the horizon, daydreaming about life at sea. It was there that he felt at peace, breathing the salty air, listening to the distant calls of seabirds, and letting his thoughts roam freely. That vast and silent landscape, however, held a surprise. Miles away, perhaps no one could imagine what was about to happen, but Jack's keen eyes soon spotted something unusual. Far off, near a sandbank that typically appeared when the tide went out, there was a dark shape. The fisherman's first impression was that it might be a piece of driftwood, or perhaps part of a shipwreck carried by the currents. Yet something about its shape made him uneasy. As he advanced along the sand, Jack noticed an unusual glimmer reflecting the sunlight. The object seemed to move very slowly, or maybe it was just the breeze shimmering over a wet surface. As he got closer, his heart pounded. It wasn't an inanimate object, but an orca, commonly known as a killer whale, stranded on the sand, part of its body still wet, but clearly in distress. The seasoned fisherman felt his pulse quicken. He knew orcas are incredible, intelligent predators, but they don't usually strand themselves easily. It was rare, but not impossible. Compassion immediately filled his eyes, mixed with the terror of not knowing what to do. Without thinking twice, he shouted for help. His voice echoed across the deserted beach, carried away by the wind. The first person to hear his cry was Emily, his wife, who usually stayed in a more distant cabin, immersed in her morning reading. Emily was a teacher at a local school and always encouraged her students to connect with nature. Next, the couple's 10-year-old son Ryan also ran toward his father. The boy was curious about everything related to the sea and dreamed of one day becoming a marine biologist or a fisherman like his dad. Upon seeing the huge, motionless orca, Ryan felt a chill run down his spine. Within minutes, Jack's shouts had spread. Local residents, fishermen, surfers, and onlookers began to arrive, all wanting to see with their own eyes what was happening. This was a close-knit community. Whenever an emergency arose, everyone was ready to help in some way, especially when it came to an iconic, beloved animal like an orca. Little by little, the once peaceful beach grew busy. The buzz of voices, the commotion, the worry on every face created an atmosphere of urgency. People looked at one another, asking what should be done. Up to that moment, none of them had real experience rescuing a stranded orca, but their will to help was unwavering. Among the first to arrive were Michael Carter and Sarah Williams. Michael owned a local dive shop. He knew a lot about maritime equipment, currents, and tides, and he had an adventurous spirit that kept him ready for any challenge. Sarah, on the other hand, was a marine biologist, especially passionate about large ocean creatures. She had dedicated much of her academic and professional life to studying cetaceans, particularly dolphins and whales. When she saw the orca, her heart tightened. She knew how serious and delicate the situation was. While closely observing the orca, Sarah explained to anyone who would listen, "Orcas are actually large dolphins. They are highly social animals, living in complex family groups, and possess an impressive capacity for coordinated hunting. Seeing one stranded like this is very worrisome. We need to act fast because without water, the orca's skin dries out, it overheats, and its own body weight can crush its internal organs." As the biologist spoke, many volunteers were already mobilizing efforts to help. Buckets, basins, sheets, and wet towels appeared as if out of nowhere. The community, usually accustomed to solving small everyday problems on the beach, now organized itself as best it could in the face of the giant in danger. Children and adults mingled in a tense environment, yet filled with hope. It was at this moment that a girl named Sophie, the daughter of the local market owner, suggested they give the orca a name. Her eyes shone with pure tenderness at the sight of such a large animal, so dependent on human help. Noticing the silvery gleam reflecting on its skin, Sophie suggested, "How about calling her Luna?" The idea was immediately embraced. Even without knowing if the orca was indeed female, everyone started referring to the animal as Luna. And in that simple act of naming her, the local population felt that this was no longer just a rescue case or a stranded specimen. It was Luna, a being deserving of respect, care, and especially a new chance to return to the ocean. The commotion surrounding Luna made many remember a recent event recorded in the collective memory. On the previous day, a group of orcas had been spotted not far from there. Surfers and beachgoers had stopped to admire the spectacle these majestic creatures provided. No one imagined that, just a few hours later, one of them would be stranded on the sand, at risk of dying if it did not receive help. Because orcas are highly intelligent and organized animals, they usually live in groups that can last a lifetime. There are males that never leave their mother's group. The older females, in turn, lead the pod, and the culture of hunting and behavior is passed down from generation to generation. For the residents of that region of New Zealand, seeing these animals hunting or swimming close to the coast was a privilege. But there was also a sense of responsibility and respect. Some fishermen even avoided casting their nets when they knew orcas were around, fearing they might injure them or disrupt their natural feeding environment. All that ecological awareness now materialized in an effort to save a life. The question on everyone's mind was, how did such an agile and powerful orca end up on the sand, unable to return to the sea? Sarah, the biologist, explained to the crowd, sometimes during a hunt near the coast, they might get distracted while chasing prey and fail to notice the receding tide. The depth change happens quickly, and by the time they realize it, they're already trapped in shallow water or directly on the sand. She added that this kind of accident is not very common, but it does happen, and when an orca strands itself, every minute counts. The natural support system for these animals in the ocean is water's buoyancy. Out of the water, the orca's massive body faces enormous pressure. Its fins, tail, and overall musculature aren't designed to bear that much weight on land. Sarah also mentioned the risk of hypothermia or hypothermia, depending on the ambient temperature. As the morning sun was already rising in the sky, the heat could be devastating for Luna. The activity on the beach intensified. Some onlookers took photos and videos, but most were actively involved in finding solutions. After keeping Luna's skin wet with towels and seawater, people began to debate the best way to get her back into the water. Michael, the dive shop owner, suggested an idea that at first seemed feasible. We could use a fishing boat to pull her. We tie the ropes carefully, and when the tide rises a bit, we tow the orca to deeper waters. It sounded logical, however setbacks quickly surfaced. Although the sea had been calm in the early hours, it was starting to get slightly rougher, pushing the boat back toward the beach. Moreover, regular ropes could injure the orca's sensitive skin, especially now that she was weak and overloaded. Even if they found a way to protect the animal's skin, such as using foam hoses or special nets, the main obstacle was the logistics of bringing the boat close without causing more stress to the orca or endangering the rescuers. Thus, the first attempt failed before it even began. Time was passing, and Luna remained there, motionless but still alive. Occasionally she moved, trying to adjust her body's weight, letting out gentle vocalizations that sounded like calls for help. Each sound from her mouth made those present even more moved and determined to act. After discarding the plan to use the boat at that moment, a group of volunteers suggested digging a channel in the sand from Luna's position to the water. The idea was simple. If they could create a trench that would fill with water, maybe it would be enough to relieve the pressure on her body and allow her to move back to the sea. Under the guidance of Tom Parker, a Coast Guard veteran with experience in smaller seal and dolphin rescues, the community started digging. Men, women, and even children grabbed shovels, hose, and buckets. It was touching to see this collective effort. However, with each scoop of sand, the wet sand caved right back into the newly opened channel. The tide was still low, and the seawater, no matter how much it flowed in, wasn't enough to keep the trench full. Additionally, the orca was relatively far from the waterline, meaning they would need to dig extensively to reach her. The result was a series of ditches that quickly refilled with sand. After a while, they realized that all their well-intentioned effort would not achieve what they needed. Exhaustion and frustration began to set in. Amid so many failed attempts, the community realized they needed to reorganize their efforts. While some continued pouring buckets of water over Luna, others paused to think of more efficient alternatives. Visibly worried, Sarah suggested the most obvious, and at the same time the riskiest course of action. Luna's best chance is to wait for the tide to rise. If we can keep her alive and relatively comfortable until then, maybe the sea itself will do most of the work for us. The tide would in fact gradually rise, but that would take a few hours. And Luna was already showing signs of exhaustion. Her breathing was heavier, and at times it seemed like she could barely move. The community divided into shifts to care for Luna. They organized a rotation of people, keeping the orca's body moist with seawater. Others gently massaged her fins, and some talked to her in soft voices, as if human calmness could be felt by the animal. There was no scientific certainty that comforting words would help, but emotionally it was important to everyone. Some also worried about the growing crowd around her. Sarah reminded them that too much noise and too many people could further stress the orca. Thus they tried to maintain a perimeter of respect, allowing only those who were physically helping to stay close. With each passing minute, the tension mounted. The sun was already high and the heat on the sand grew more intense. Though they were constantly dousing Luna with water, there was a risk that her body temperature could rise too much. At the same time, prolonged periods out of the water can cause irreversible damage to an orca's muscles and internal organs. Jack Thompson, who had made the initial discovery, felt particularly responsible. Even though he was the first to find Luna, he also suffered from not having the technical knowledge to lead a rescue of this magnitude. At one point, he questioned his own ability. Should I have called the Marine rescue team right away? Did I waste time shouting for help when I should have phoned someone specialized? However, Emily and others reassured him. He did exactly what any sensible person would do: seek immediate help in the fastest way possible. While he was shouting, Emily had already contacted the proper authorities. They all knew that, in a remote area, communication was often precarious, and the distance between rescue bases and the beach could cost crucial minutes or hours. They lived in a small coastal town in New Zealand, mostly made up of fishermen, tourism shop owners, and water sports enthusiasts. The Maori culture, strongly present on the island, attributed spiritual value to marine creatures. Whales, dolphins, and orcas were considered kaitiaki, guardians or symbols of protection for the local people. Given this cultural heritage, the stranding of an orca wasn't viewed merely as a biological accident. It also had a mystical and symbolic component. The Maori believed that when these animals appeared on the coast, they might bring messages from the sea gods or demand greater respect for nature. Sarah, although a traditionally trained scientist, greatly valued this perspective. For her, ancestral wisdom and scientific knowledge could walk hand in hand. While waiting for the tide to rise, Jack's mind wandered into the past. He recalled his first experience on the open sea as a child, on his father's boat. That day, his father had taught him about currents, about forecasting storms, and especially about always respecting the ocean above all else. He also remembered another pivotal event in his youth, when he took part in rescuing a dolphin caught in fishing nets. That day, the dolphin was saved, but a fishing companion was seriously injured while trying to cut the nets underwater. It was Jack's first lesson in how unforgiving the sea could be, requiring both courage and caution. Now, with Luna stranded before him, he felt once again at a crossroads. He was part of a community that depended on the sea and also revered it. Saving Luna was more than just saving an orca. It was also a way of giving back to the ocean for all it had provided the region over the years. Some on the beach talked about previous incidents where whales and dolphins had stranded in other parts of the world. In informal conversations, Sarah explained that mass strandings often occur when the leader of a group of cetaceans takes a wrong route or when diseases disorient the animals. Luna's case, however, appeared to be an individual stranding during a hunt, The anatomy of cetaceans, like orcas, is adapted for living in an aquatic environment with strong buoyancy support. Outside the water, the body's weight presses on internal organs, potentially causing irreversible damage, especially if the stranding lasts too long. Moreover, the lack of water circulation around the body can cause its temperature to rise quickly. Sarah further detailed that the skin of orcas and dolphins is sensitive and needs intensive care to avoid cracking and sunburn caused by prolonged exposure to the sun and sand. She recommended the constant use of wet towels, but emphasized the importance of not covering the animal's blowhole, through which air is expelled. Michael and Tom Parker organized a rotating schedule among volunteers because, without that kind of organization, people would tire quickly, and Luna could not go a single minute without care. They quickly formed groups responsible for different tasks. Hydration group, tasked with keeping Luna's body wet using buckets and improvised containers. Medical support group. Even though there wasn't a local marine veterinarian, a nurse and a volunteer paramedic stepped up to check vital signs and offer minimal support. Communication group, responsible for maintaining contact with authorities, sharing any updates about specialized rescue efforts, and guiding the crowd that had formed. Observation group, in charge of watching the horizon and monitoring the approaching tide and professional assistance. Any abrupt change in weather or water level could be decisive. Meanwhile, Sarah monitored Luna's breathing, gently placing her hand near the blowhole and observing the frequency. Any sign of irregularity would indicate that their time to save her was running out. Amid all this organization, the children on the beach were experiencing a real-life lesson in empathy, ecology, and the value of life. Ryan, Jack's son, watched Luna with both fascination and fear. His young heart filled with hope when he saw the animal move its tail, even if only slightly, as if to say, "I'm still here." Sophie, the girl who had given Luna her name, held a small, colorful bucket and helped carry water to the whale. Her eyes sparkled with emotion as she spoke softly to the animal, trying to convey courage. She didn't care if Luna understood her words. What mattered was doing her part. Sometimes, adults asked the children to step away, fearing the animal's size or that the scene might be too distressing. But Sarah intervened. She believed that this moment could profoundly shape how these children would view nature from then on. Let them help. This is a learning experience they'll carry forever. Finally, after some time, word arrived that a specialized marine mammal rescue team was on its way from a larger city. However, the coastal road had sections under construction, causing delays. It was estimated that the rescue group would take more hours to arrive. The news didn't completely discourage the volunteers, but it made them realize they couldn't rely on immediate outside assistance. This race against the clock would continue to be fought mainly by the local community. At this point, faith in God, in the sea gods, or simply in good fortune began to be invoked. Some offered silent prayers, others chanted Maori songs, asking the spirit's blessing to save Luna. At one moment, a Maori elder named Kaya approached Sarah. With a serene smile, she said, "We have seen whales return to life before. They feel it when people around them send positive energy. Keep doing what you're doing. Soon the tide will be on your side." Hours went by. The sun that had once been rising in the east was now moving toward its zenith. Shadows shortened, but something finally brought a spark of hope. The tide began to rise. At first, it was barely noticeable. Small waves became slightly stronger and advanced a few centimeters past their previous mark. Before long, a different breeze settled over the beach. This was the moment everyone had been waiting for. Luna, who had remained mostly motionless, began to move her tail. The volunteers noticed that the water was reaching her back fins. A collective sigh of relief spread through the air, though it was still too early to celebrate. They needed to wait until there was enough water to lift most of Luna's body. In the meantime, they redoubled their efforts. They drenched the towels covering Luna's exposed areas in the sun, assessing whether she showed any signs of pain or extreme stress. Sarah crouched by the whale, examining the coloration of her eyes and her breathing. Each new wave, no matter how small, carried fresh hope. As the tide advanced, the community prepared for the next step. Someone recalled that when the orca was finally in enough water to move, she might still be disoriented and could swim in the wrong direction or injure herself in shallow waters. They formed a human corridor in the water, with people positioned in 2 lines at a safe distance from one another. The goal was to guide Luna toward deeper water if she became confused upon regaining her mobility. Jack, Michael, and Tom Parker positioned themselves closer to the deeper section, ready to give instructions from afar and ensure the orca went in the right direction. Emily, Sarah, and others stayed at Luna's side, tracking her recovery step by step. The anticipation was immense. Each second felt like an eternity. Gradually, waves washed over more and more of Luna's massive body. Sarah signaled everyone to remain quiet. It was time to let the animal adapt and start floating on her own. The big moment finally came when one stronger wave almost completely covered Luna's back. Feeling lighter, the orca began to make swimming motions, moving her tail and pectoral fins, as if instinctively seeking the buoyancy that would support her in the deeper sea. Jack, Michael, and Tom acted carefully, gently guiding Luna's body toward open water. They didn't want to force her, only to ensure she didn't end up trapped in shallow waters. It was a delicate, almost choreographed movement. Suddenly, in the blink of an eye, Luna began to swim. At first, slowly, as if still weak and disoriented. People kept their distance, giving her room. Then she moved a few meters away, turning toward the horizon. It looked as though the happy ending they had all hoped for was finally coming. But an even more thrilling moment was about to happen. Instead of just disappearing, Luna did the unthinkable. She swam back toward the beach, once again approaching the people who had helped her. There was a brief moment of apprehension. Would she strand again? But no. What followed was an unforgettable sight. In front of everyone there, Luna breached out of the water, once, twice, 3 times in a row. The sparkle of the spray lit up the scene, and for a moment, each leap was met with cheers, applause, and even tears from many. It seemed like a gesture of gratitude, as if Luna was saying, "Thank you." The beach erupted in applause, nervous laughter, tears of emotion, and hugs. People who hardly knew each other hugged like old friends. This rescue had brought the community even closer, reminding everyone of the power of solidarity. Ryan couldn't hold back his tears. Emily knelt down beside her son and, hugging him, said, "Did you see that, my love? It was beautiful. We did our part and Luna returned to the sea." Sophie ran along the beach, hugging people and shouting, "She went home, Luna went home." The local market owner, Sophie's father, took pictures of everything, wanting to immortalize that moment of triumph. Even Sarah, the biologist who always tried to maintain her scientific composure, couldn't contain her tears. She knew that in nature, not all rescues have a happy ending. Many strandings result in death or serious complications. But on that day, the unity of so many people made the difference. Sometime later, still in the early afternoon, the specialized rescue team finally arrived. They brought equipment, special stretchers, and all the necessary gear for large cetacean rescues. But they found the beach nearly empty, with only a few people still there cleaning up the area, collecting towels and buckets. When told that Luna had already been saved, the professionals were both surprised and pleased. It was one of the rare cases in which the local population managed on their own to provide emergency care and keep the animal alive until the tide came in. One of the specialists, after evaluating the scene, said, "You did almost everything right. You protected the orca's skin, kept her wet, organized yourselves in shifts, waited for the tide, and carefully guided the animal. It's a good thing it worked out. Congratulations, everyone." For the community, hearing that acknowledgement felt very rewarding. Indeed, they had done their best with the resources they had, proving that solidarity and love for nature can overcome great challenges. News of Luna's rescue spread quickly. In just a few hours, videos and pictures of the rescue flooded social media. News outlets, both local and international, began contacting witnesses for more details. Many were impressed by Luna's apparent show of gratitude, evidenced by her multiple leaps in front of her rescuers. Scientists debated the topic, explaining that orcas are extremely intelligent animals, capable of forms of communication and interaction with humans. Some suggested that the breaches might have been a way to shake off parasites, or simply typical orca behavior. Others, however, preferred the more emotional explanation, that Luna somehow recognized the help she received. Regardless, The episode served as a powerful reminder of how much marine life conservation depends on human empathy. In a world so often filled with grim news about ocean pollution, illegal hunting, and climate change, Luna's rescue was proof that there is still room for positive actions and environmental stewardship. In the days following the incident, the community continued talking about what had happened. Small acts of kindness and camaraderie, once overlooked, began to be seen in a different light. Many children, inspired by what they had witnessed, showed interest in learning more about whales, dolphins, and the importance of preserving marine ecosystems. The local school organized a lecture with Sarah, during which she showed videos of orcas, discussed these animals' intelligence, and highlighted the importance of keeping the oceans clean and safe. Ryan and Sophie took an active role, sharing their personal experiences and moving their classmates with descriptions of being so close to such an impressive and at the same time defenseless creature. With Michael's help, the dive shop began hosting educational tours, taking small groups out by boat to observe marine life, always with clear rules to avoid interfering with the natural habitat and to keep a respectful distance from wildlife. It was a way to educate tourists and residents alike, while also providing a sustainable source of income for the region. Luna's story not only brought momentary joy, but also sparked deeper reflection on the relationship between humans and marine life. In conversations with his fisherman friends, Jack reconsidered fishing in areas where orcas and dolphins often hunted. They decided to establish imaginary boundaries in the sea, areas they would avoid during peak periods of orca activity. Several residents reported changing simple day-to-day habits, such as how they disposed of their trash. After all, plastics and other waste can easily reach the ocean, endangering countless creatures. The town hall adopted stricter regulations and launched environmental awareness campaigns for both tourists and locals. Even those who initially came just out of curiosity left changed. The image of a stranded, vulnerable orca stirred a sense of responsibility that had long lain dormant in many. As an old local saying goes, "When we help a creature of the sea, we also help ourselves." It wasn't long before Luna became a sort of living legend in the area. During family gatherings, beach barbecues, and fishermen's meetings, her name came up, accompanied by stories and details of that rescue day. Children recreated the orca's leaps in their games and drawings, imagining her joyful farewell. Tourists began asking, "Is this the place where Luna was saved?" A sign was placed at the beach entrance, featuring some information about the rescue and a photo of Luna breaching. The sign bore a simple yet impactful message. Here, on a sunny day filled with hope, humans and nature came together to save a life. May this act inspire many more. Sarah sent the rescue records to universities and cetacean research centers, hoping to contribute to studies on the behavior of these animals during strandings and on community involvement in marine mammal rescue. In interviews with media outlets, she always stressed the need for people to be prepared and mindful, acting with caution and respecting both the animal and the environment around them. Sometimes people wondered whether Luna or her pod might one day return to that beach. There was no way to be sure, as orcas can travel great distances following food. Still, some believed that given the memory and intelligence of these animals, Luna might very well remember that place and pass by again someday. Ryan entertained a fantasy of swimming in the sea one day and recognizing Luna, who would approach for a brief visit. It was a child's dream, yet it symbolized all the wonder stirred by this meeting between humans and nature. Sophie held on to the same hope. In a school essay, she wrote, "I think Luna will come see me again, maybe not tomorrow, but she knows I helped her. And when I see her, I'll say hi, and she'll jump again." With the global attention garnered by Luna's story, discussions about the conservation of oceans and marine mammals grew more intense. Experts worldwide emphasize that, while rescuing a single orca is a major achievement, the real victory lies in preventing such strandings from occurring in the first place. Issues like pollution, climate change, declining fish stocks, destructive fishing practices, and changes in underwater acoustics can disorient these animals or force them to hunt closer to shore. Thus, Luna's case served as a wake-up call. If we don't take better care of the oceans, more and more animals may wash up on our beaches, and we may not always have the time or resources to save them. Even so, Luna's story was received with optimism, as proof that humanity can indeed make a difference. In a world so often overshadowed by bad news, an account of cooperation and empathy toward a creature in danger resonated deeply in many hearts. The final message that emerged in the days that followed was a call for everyone to reflect on their role in protecting marine life. Stories of sea turtles caught in nets, oil-soaked penguins and dolphins stranded in fishing gear began to appear in the comments under posts about Luna. People felt encouraged to share their own experiences or take an interest in marine conservation causes. Whether through volunteering, donating to NGOs, or making small daily changes, individual transformation can lead to significant collective changes. If each person does their part, the chances of saving more lunas and preventing fatal strandings increase considerably. For those who followed this entire story, the invitation remains to reflect and act. It might start with something simple: reducing the use of single-use plastics, never littering on the beach, joining beach or river cleanup drives, supporting conservation projects, and staying informed about the state of the world's oceans. It's vital to remember that the sea isn't just somewhere to visit or a source of fishing resources. It is a complex ecosystem, home to immense biodiversity, playing a fundamental role in climate balance and our own survival. Every drop of effort toward preservation matters. Luna's legacy transcends the image of a stranded orca that made it back to sea. She became a symbol of our collective ability to unite for a higher purpose, even when obstacles seem insurmountable. The local community proved that with organization, goodwill, and respect, it's possible to accomplish feats many would deem impossible. Moreover, Luna reminded everyone that the planet doesn't belong solely to our species. It is a shared home for countless forms of life. If we keep that in mind, we will be taking a crucial step toward ensuring a more harmonious future for both humanity and nature. When Luna finally disappeared into the horizon, no one could have predicted that this scene would spark so many positive changes within the community. The rescue brought lessons, inspired children, drew worldwide attention, and above all, rekindled the spirit of solidarity. For Jack Thompson, every fishing trip became a vigil for marine life. For Emily, her school lessons gained a special element of environmental engagement. For Ryan, a clearer dream of studying to one day protect the oceans was born. For Sophie, there remained the certainty that a simple act of kindness can completely transform a story. And the beach, once just a pretty place, became the stage for a heroic act, remembered in every grain of sand and in every whisper of the waves. Now I ask you, who read this account? Have you ever witnessed or taken part in an animal rescue? If so, what was the experience like? What feelings and reflections did it inspire? If not, how do you feel after hearing stories like Luna's? Your story can inspire others and show that despite challenges, we are capable of great acts of humanity. And if you've made it all the way here, please comment, "I protect animals." It's a simple yet symbolic act, showing that you care and are willing to support the preservation of marine life and all living beings that share this planet with us. Thank you for dedicating your time to learn about this story. Keep following the channel or page or blog for more incredible tales from the animal and human worlds. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so we can spread this message of care, empathy, and protection for life even further. Remember, every action counts. Every minute can be decisive when it comes to saving a life at risk. Stay informed, keep alive the spirit of solidarity, and never underestimate the power of a united community. We'll see you in the next video or publication, where who knows we'll bring more inspiring narratives of how human collaboration and respect for nature can change destinies and save lives, whether they're orcas, dolphins, sea turtles, seabirds, or any other beings inhabiting our extraordinary blue planet.